Hey everyone, we're going to start soon. I just recognize people are still connecting. Since we are not going to be a huge group, I would appreciate if everyone that can do so switches on their camera. Then I'm not just talking to black tiles. Thank you.
I don't miss sound, right? Oh, you're muted, Sandra.
You sound good, Maarten.
Okay.
Okay, then I would say just let's start. Again, if you are able to switch on the camera, that makes it a little bit more closer. I don't have an agenda for this call. As it is announced from the IGF as an informal gathering, I offered that to many communities. So I just said, yeah, let's try it. Why not? At the end of the IGF, we might reflect a little bit on this. I have only one thing that I would like to bring to your attention again, which is the call for issues. Don't forget that until 6th of December, we need your input on that matter. And also that we agreed on our open forum already that we are going to start an intersessional work on environmental and climate issues, which also then should feed into the involvement of the IGF Plus model in their intersessional work. The Swiss government is initiating a, what they call it, policy project or something like this. It's just going to start in connection with the IGF, also on that topic. So we are pretty good in time if we also do intersessional work on this thing, and we will continue with that group that formed for the workshop, for the plenary in for EuroDIG 2020. And if you are interested, just subscribe to that mailing list. We will soon open another mailing list and transfer the subscribers from that one mailing list to the new mailing list, so that this group can continue. And then I have two things that I would be interested in hearing from you. One is, how do you find the virtual IGF and these virtual meetings overall, since we have to possibly stick with them for quite some time. We should know what went well, what went good. You had a number of virtual conferences this year: EuroDIG, CDIG, IGF, ICANN meetings, possibly others. So it would be really good to know by the end of this year what is something to keep and what should be avoided. And then also, since we have at least 2 EuroDIG program committee members, and youth will be the first group we are going to start with, we should possibly discuss how we are doing this in the most effective way, keeping in mind that we don't yet know what's going to happen. But that's all what I have on my list. but I don't want to talk too much and moderate that, or kind of dominate, moderate that meeting. I would rather invite you to speak up, ask questions, just feel like we are sitting around a big table and could discuss. No one wants Tanya. Yeah, sorry, I haven't seen you. Tanya, just start.
It's fine. Yeah, I'll just kick this ball because I'm leaving very soon. I have another session. So basically, I do think that all these virtual meetings. Well, first of all, how do I find IGF? I could barely attend the IGF because I have 3 events running in parallel. So I attended only those sessions that I was either moderating or that were of my utmost interest. And here comes one of my points. These virtual meetings are running in parallel with little or no consideration what is going on somewhere else. And it is quite tiring. So I do believe that although they have improved significantly, for example, I did like the IGF and many other meetings for one thing. People before sometimes sat in the audience but were afraid to speak, were afraid to raise their hands. Now the discussions are indeed going in the chat. And this is a kind of not only participation, but inclusion and participation in discussion is the factor I really like. What I don't like about many of those virtual meetings is that they are discussing unnecessary issues ad nauseam. It's just like every meeting is trying to expand so much and the same issues over and over again. I think that for the future, because we are going to get tired of this, we are going to get tired of this pretty quickly. We already are. I saw the calls of the technical communities committing to not running events in parallel or not running events longer than 2 weeks, but here we are. So yeah, and I do think that the thing here is try to trim and cut everything that is not necessary, especially if we are talking about some focused meetings, regional meetings. I understand that this would be impossible in the case of the global IGF, but try to stay more focused, try to focus only on the issues that are important, and everything else can be discussed somewhere else. We don't need to go over and over again about the same things. So this would be my input, and I will have to run soon. So it's lovely seeing you all.
Tanya, is this your comment on the repetition in particular with regard to the IGF, or when you look at all the meetings together in the field of internet governance?
Yes. So what I can say, for example, let me take one example. ICANN. There were plenty of sessions that shouldn't have been at that meeting, you know. They are either internal discussions that could be done before or after or at any other time. So the schedules are getting just incredibly big. And then what you have at the end, you have almost no outcome. With the IGF, I understand that the situation is quite unique because it is a global IGF. So this is something different. But I always thought that perhaps what we did at EuroDIG helps, you know, have tracks. One day this track, another day this track. And I think that many of online events could have benefited from this. IGF, it's hard for me to assess because I attended only very few sessions. And I said what I liked about it. I like the issue of participation, that people are not only listening, but trying to provide their opinions. And I think it's good. This is the benefit of remote participation. So with the IGF, it's hard for me to assess, although, as I said, it's been a hard time the last few weeks. I just have one event after another, and I believe that is the case for many people, and it's hard to manage. So I believe that we have to learn how to say no to ourselves. We have to learn how to trim and put aside and reschedule some discussion that are either repeating the issues or produce no outcome or produce no new ideas, and concentrate on what is really important.
And one last point, Tanja, since you're speaking, and I would ask all the others the same question. What helped you to not experience this fatigue that we all, I mean, this, that you get tired and...
Nothing. I am absolutely fatigued. I'm taking days off this week because it's impossible for any human being to manage. It's inhumane. I'm tired, I'm exhausted after 3 weeks of having calls from 8 a.m. till 9-10 p.m. But okay, my situation is a bit unique. I'm now on the GNSO leadership, right? So I have to do a lot of stuff. But there is no cure except saying no to myself and saying, okay, I'm not going to attend this session. I'm not going to attend that session. So dream for myself even.
Okay.
And yeah, so that's the only way.
Okay, thanks, Tanja. Then next is Marcus and then Mark.
Yes, hello. It's great to see you all, albeit only online. And like Tanja, I will have to jump off pretty soon. So I thought I'd come in early, but a very strong +1 to what Tanja said in terms of less can be more. And I think we're all feeling a bit zoomed out. Obviously, what Tanja said refers also to not only to the virtual IGF, but to the IGF at normal times. Everybody said the same thing. There was always too much on the plate. But if we're all in the same place physically, then it's more manageable. Whereas if it's spread out online, it gets a bit tiring. But I had more granular comments in a sense that, well, like Tanja, I also thought on the whole it went well. And the level of participation in the chat is definitely a positive element. The people participated with substantive comments who might not have said anything in a physical IGF. The webinar format I found a bit difficult to begin with, but I think we managed to use it in a better way. It is frustrating to be in a meeting if you don't know who else is in a meeting, but I do understand that for security reasons that was chosen. And with some clever management by the moderators, it can be softened a bit, by saying how many people are in the room, by asking people to say in the chat whether they're in the room or not, and also to promote speakers to panelists if possible, to the extent possible. That was done extremely well in some sessions. That definitely helped the feeling of inclusion, whereas in other sessions, the moderator did not pick up on this. This is definitely something that moderators need to be coached in advance of the session. And great kudos to Tanja. She did an amazing job moderating the dynamic coalition main session, as she always did. And that was a very inclusive way of doing it. These are my comments. So thanks. And I have to say goodbye soon.
Same question to you, Marcus. Is there anything from the organizers or from the technical side that would help you to feel more? And I mean, you said already that the webinar format is a little bit difficult to feel engaged, but is there anything else from an organizer's side that could be done or that you recognized as something valuable?
Well, the way the moderators handle the webinar format, obviously here we are in a meeting format where we all see each other, which is much nicer. We sit like sitting around the table, but the webinar format, I do understand there are security issues, so it gives you more security that there's no Zoom bombing happening. But the moderators can help by bringing in people, also give them the panelist format. That is in the hands of the moderator, but that is something that needs to be prepared, and moderators need to be coached in advance. And at the same time, participants also need to be made aware that, please give your name in the chat, and the moderator sees how many people are in the call, and the moderator can say that. Moderators did say that in many sessions. We have 200 people on the call or so, but it gives you a feeling for the room, for the session. But if you just see the faces on the panelists, you feel a bit lost. That's all.
Okay, thanks, Marcus. Then the next is Mark, and then Wout, and then Maarten.
Yes, thank you, Sandra. Hello, everybody. I would echo everything that Tatiana and Marcus have said. Really, on some of the sessions, I felt quite detached. You know, there was not much interaction. In fact, on some sessions, the time allowed for questions was very squeezed, and I mean, I tabled questions and they never got to be responded to. That's a real danger. I think panels getting carried away, especially if there's a lot of people participating. Like the workshop on multi-stakeholder voices. I thought that was on Friday. There was hardly any time actually for multi-stakeholder voices. I felt anyway. I don't know. That was the impression other people had. I was pretty disappointed at the lack of time for really going into some questions, some great questions that were tabled. So I think there's a real risk if they're, as Marcus is saying, if they're not properly managed in terms of time and not involving too many people on a panel. There's a risk that the audience really is detached and not involved. And if you have no sight of how many people are actually attending, it's very, very cold sort of situation. It'll be interesting to see the data on participation, particularly from governments. I didn't see many people from government in the sessions I attended, or I recognized as government people anyway. I didn't see many people. And this is, you know, the IGF having had to go over a much longer period, it'll be interesting to see how numbers were sustained, who was hanging in there right up until this week, you know, on key main sessions and so on, and the high level meetings, you know, how much involvement across all the constituencies, governments, business, civil society, and so on, how much involvement there is. I guess we have to wait for the data and geographical spread. I mean, virtual has been a great opportunity for much more outreach across the world, and that's, I think, has been demonstrated. But some analysis of how it's actually working and how it's being sustained would be useful. I mean, just a general comment, I think this way of handling internet governance discussions will continue beyond the immediate lockdown impacts of COVID into virtual hybrid meetings. I think that is definitely the way forward, because there are definite benefits of much more virtual working. I'll stop there. Thanks.
Mark, let me ask you, do you have a preference with regard to meetings that stretch over a longer period compared to meetings that are focused on, I'm comparing very concretely now the condensed EuroDIG approach and the longer stretched IGF approach, because we had a discussion, what is the best way to go? Do you have a preference in that?
I think I definitely have a preference for a more condensed approach over a shorter period. I think inevitably there'll be, with longer time frames, there'll be overlaps with other things going on, and there have been other things going on. Sort of God, what am I missing while I'm hanging in there with the IGF? So yes, that's focus and real strategic. I mean, I think this is what the UN high-level panel is basically saying anyway.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, yep. Mark. Then next is Wout, then Maarten. And I see there is a lot of discussion going on in the chat, which is good, but I would appreciate if you also raise your hand, because I can't do both, following the chat and moderating the discussion. So please don't be shy and raise up your hand. Wout, you go next.
Yes, thank you, Sandra. Can you hear me?
Yeah, a bit faint, I must say.
Then I'll try to get the mic closer.
That's better.
So welcome everybody. Nice to see you. I don't have a camera on my desktop, so you can't see me, unfortunately. What I would like to say first is that the ease with which this virtual IGF is moving technically is showing how far we've progressed in the world in a few years, that we can actually do this and participate from all around the globe and see people, hear people. So that is one. The second one is on the webinar thing. I'd never understood that there was this difference. So my 2 sessions in the first week were all without people being able to see each other, because I had not understood that there was this difference. So that is something perhaps, but it's for the IGF, of course, to contemplate. I think the third thing, and I said that the late last week as well in an IGF session, is that what I noticed looking at the schedule is how many sessions there are with COVID in the title.
Mm.
And yes, that is, of course, the pandemic going on at this point in time. But I wonder, would it have been more effective if some of these sessions would have been brought together and not just asked to be a session, but asked to come up with recommendations of some sort that could be a coordinated IGF output? Because in that way, we've actually would have used all that energy on the topic instead of just listening probably to a lot of the same people telling the same things in the same sessions. So in other words, it's an opportunity that was let go. And EuroDIG does that. There's more coordination on topics, etc. But isn't that a message that we could share once again with the MAG, saying you have this opportunity also? Because why not look at the program and try to bring people together who obviously have the same sort of concerns, and not have them isolated in session 1 up to 18 or something. So that is something which I think that we could actually look more consciously to. The fourth topic about all the conferences taking place at the same time. Well, in other situations, we would have added that we would be traveling around the world and perhaps have to move in and out of sessions there. So if that is a real difference, I don't know. What is easier is that when you're at home, you can actually select what you want to participate in. But the other side is that you miss topics that you would walk into spontaneously. You miss the contacts that you have one-on-one with people in the rooms. And that is obviously a point that is extremely important in the work that we do, to be able to meet each other, to talk to each other formally or informally during the whole week that you usually have. And that is something which in the virtual IGF or EuroDIG can't be repaired. It's something that is almost impossible to offer. There's no spontaneity possible. So that's the downside. But also technically, it's a miracle, basically, looking at it. So I'll stop there and thank you, and have a good day all.
Mm. Thanks, Wout. I also recognize the numerous mentioning of COVID, and I could just guess that this is a procedural issue from the IGF, because we all know when workshops are being submitted, when the selection is taking place, and since the pandemic continued, I guess that many organizers just changed the title because they thought it's a good idea to have this discussion that they submitted in, I don't know when it was, in May or in June, that this is a discussion to be held under COVID. And the way we did with our plenary, it was supposed to be the plenary 3, then became the plenary 1, and we added COVID in the title because we had a discussion under the light of COVID, but this was the only session then. But that's only a guess, and definitely something to bring forward to the IGF and see what the issues are. Next is Maarten.
Hey, Sandra. Hey, all. Good to see you. Yeah, I think it was an experience for me where, for the first time in many years, I wasn't spending a whole day on IGF. I was picking and choosing the sessions that appealed to me and I wanted to do. And of course, I missed the social context and the ability to talk with people in the hallways. But that is one of the advantages, as Wout also said, something to take to heart. I think the big difference between EuroDIG and IGF, if you translate the lessons to EuroDIG, is that we are much more one time zone for EuroDIG, which makes it more possible to have slightly longer days in a more condensed time. The condensed time people can take out and focus in, and then they may, in the hour that they have off, they may choose to go to that session that maybe is also interesting. So that is one thing. On the whole COVID discussion, I agree that it's important, and what EuroDIG has been exemplary in is having focus sessions on topics. The fact that COVID is mentioned doesn't mean that is the topic. It could be abuse, it could be awareness raising, it could be different focuses. And I think it's very good to take into account that COVID for us brings a lot of lessons in different realms. So don't make the mistake of saying COVID, one block. Just warning for that. It's about similar subject, one block, as you used to do, and let's keep it to that. And yeah, learning from real life is something that we did in EuroDIG before as well. Continuously important. More important than ever for virtual sessions is a very good description of the session. In the past, an indication would be good enough to have people wander in and check out whether it was of their interest. Now they really need to understand why they should log in. So that is a thought. And my last thought is indeed what is usually relative disappointment in many IGF sessions is the lack of time to discuss, as Mark also raised. At EuroDIG that normally goes better, but it's really managing the speaker's time, not trying to stay within the allotted slot, which is important. If the moderator is aware of that and be made extra aware of that, that will allow to have the second part of every session to be focused on what the audience wants to talk about, rather than what people want to share from what they know. So these are the few thoughts that came up, having listened back and thinking ahead of EuroDIG.
Good point. On the last point, I can just add that I also had the experience. I was asked in the main session to prepare for one question, and I had like 3 minutes. But there were so many speakers, and I exceeded my 3 minutes, and I was cut off, which is okay. But I think the issue was to have too many speakers, them then saying the same thing again and again, because the speakers among each other, of course, they don't coordinate. Some had to answer the same question, the same set of questions. And so we ended up many speakers saying similar things, but not everyone having enough time to do so. And in the end, we had no time at all for question and answer, which I felt really not good. Okay, next is Chris, then Andrea, and then Adam. Chris, go ahead.
Thanks, Sandra. I'll keep it relatively brief because I don't think I have a huge amount original to say that hasn't been in the chat or that other speakers haven't said. I mean, I think key point for me is, yeah, that I wouldn't want to be sort of just criticizing the IGF. I think that the event this year has, you know, taken a lot to put on and has largely gone very smoothly, and I think that's something I've given kudos for. I think there are two areas where I see and that have been discussed here. One is focus, one is sort of the remote operational aspects. I mean, focus-wise, and the COVID issue has been mentioned here, that COVID came up so many times. I was very strongly in favor of COVID being a bit of a theme for this IGF, and I think the implications of it for internet governance really required that be the case. I was also really pleased to see environmental issues taking a thematic track at this IGF. But I think with both of those, I've found it very difficult to get any sort of narrative sense in this. That they've been just sort of, okay, event here, event here, event. It's been very hard to sort of see any coordination or organization of those discussions and sort of any attempt to bring focus to them. It's just been a lot of different discussions. and I'm not sure how useful that is. I think it's particularly probably exacerbated by having a remote event where, as Maarten said, you can't submerge yourself in the event. You're sort of, oh, I'll do this for 90 minutes and then I'll go back to my other work and then I'll do something else. I think for the remote participation operational side, yeah, the lack of knowing who's in the room really I found very detrimental to any sort of social interaction, to any even discussion. I mean, you, in some cases, eventually found out who was in the room by who was in the chat, and that meant that more discussions emerged organically. But a lot of the time it was, yeah, I don't know this person's there, so I'm not going to reach out. I'm not going to have that conversation. Yeah, I mentioned in the chat, spatial chat, which was used at the right meeting, and also EuroDIG. Yeah, it was really successful in terms of providing a bit more of a closer to social forum for attendees to join. And I think we need to, as organizers, be keeping an eye on that, because certainly, at least whatever vaccine there is out there, I think certainly for the first half of next year, at least, we're still going to be in virtual events. And the more we can learn from the experiences that we've all had so many of now, the better. So yeah, that's my points.
Thank you very much. I will come back to you to this partial chat. You mentioned it already. I think that's something we should try out soon. I don't know it at all. Andrea, you're next.
Hello. Hello, everybody. Good to see you. So I have a few points, not all of them, let's say consequential, but I would like to share because I think this is a group that has a lot of experience, and I would like to hear what you think. For me personally, these IGF, EuroDIG, CDIG, the Italian IGF, the ICANN meetings, all of those online events have been a reckoning moment of first that we never really understood what remote participation is, and we did you know, presented the ICANN meetings, the IGF, as accessible because everything was streamed, was translated. But then we realizing that, you know, that was kind of a fig leaf, and it takes more than that. And we are still realizing how hard it is. And probably having everybody forcibly remote suddenly brought some real kind of equal footing, another dear term in the IG community, to this space. The other recognition is that we, in a way, operate in a sense of kind of a denial, where we think that this is just a passage, it's just a step. We'll go back to having meetings, you know, in person, and so, you know, we will work with some online tools, and they, you know, even if they are imperfect, it's just a temporary solution. And that didn't help us. And I think now we are realizing that we are here in the mid, who knows, maybe long term, maybe it will be 2021, 2022 when we will be able to do that. But we have been operating in this kind of sense of denial that's just, you know, if it's okay if it's suboptimal, because we will go back to having a EuroDIG sometimes, and that's, you know, we will forget, we will look back and say, how do we remember once we had it online? So that didn't help us, and I think we should start kind of moving to a different level of awareness and consciousness that maybe these things are here to stay longer than what we wish for. And that leads me to another point, which is even how the way the topic, these events are being structured. Maybe because we were forced by the you know, the sudden change, but we basically adapted an offline event with kind of a false sense of online participation to a full online event, and we haven't been able to, you know, to readdress the whole event to the new situation with the fact that, you know, we have to be all stuck at home. And so the way the program is built, the way the tracks are you know, main session, parallel session, high level, mid-level, whatever, all this is basically what we've been doing for the past 14 years, and then, you know, it's with some small adjustments. So as part of this reckoning, we also should start looking at, you know, at a different format. And here it leads me to the point about 2 weeks, 1 week, you know, 2 days, 3 days. I think that really depends on the topic that you're addressing. And honestly, you know, many of these events I had to, in my previous, you know travel-wise, I had to justify me taking 3 days off and going to an event, because it was actually a 3 days event. It wouldn't have been, you know, very reasonable for me to just leave 1 day. And that led me also to, you know, to go to a meeting and, you know, and participate, even if in reality that wasn't super important for me. And that also got me to, you know, present a session to that meeting, even if I knew that in that meeting I would reach, you know, 5, 10, 25 people, and that wouldn't make much sense to justify the cost. So all these dynamics, I think, still play in organizing these events. And we should kind of look at them with a fresh look and think of the issues to address. Maybe, you know, there are some issues that can be a topic of 1 day, and some issues that, since we are all in this situation, can go along for, you know, a longer period, and can be a different format, can be, you know, sessions that actually lead to some forms of outcome, because it's an iterative process that takes, you know, 3 weeks. So that, I think, is also an answer that we have to consider, an angle that we have considered when we think about the days. And, you know, if 2 weeks, 1 week, 3 days, it's enough or it's too much. And then one last point, I was, you know, very impressed and surprised by the Italian IGF and how, you know, how this event, and I still try to figure out why it worked so well. It's a combination of events. Maybe, you know, there is also a level of kind of general feeling of Italy of being, you know, having suffered that much from COVID, one kind of a sense of national revenge and say, let's do something proper, maybe. But, you know, the numbers, the formats, there were some sessions where I would see, you know, thousands of participants, numbers that not even the global IGF can reach. And then I looked at some of the elements, and what they did, even probably unwantingly, is that they forcefully reached out to other communities. You know, something that the IGF, EuroDIG, CV has been struggling to do for many years. They went, you know, and involved universities, and there were some sessions where you had, you know, hundreds of students participating, because the universities were putting this IGF as part of their curricula. The involvement of the, you know, the business sector with the Chamber of Commerce, having these hybrid formats where you would have sessions with few people meeting in a room, there will be live streamed online, and then having hubs of people where they could go and meet people there. So, you know, it's a series of elements, and I hope we can share more. I see Roberto is also there. We're trying to figure out with the Italian IGF how to do a proper report with all these data. But, you know, there was something that I think kind of diverted from all what I was saying above. I was saying, you know what, we cannot just do another online event. Let's try something different, and proved very successful. It may be a one-off, maybe it cannot be so easily replicable, but there are some leads there that we need to look into it careful. Okay, I stop here, but I would like to hear also from you what you think. Thank you.
Thanks, Andreas. IGF Italy was indeed remarkable. This all blew our mind away, and Roberto and I, we are in contact already with the Union Camera to cooperate with them for the next EuroDIG. So that's indeed something on our agenda already. Adam, you are next, and then Nebojsa.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, it's probably, I think, quite a simple point. I think it's nice to think that we might be going back to holding meetings as we used to do, with all of us coming together as a global community at the IGF next year. But I think it's worth planning on not doing, and the same thing for other meetings, particularly EuroDIG. couple of reasons for that. One is that it's a good idea to plan ahead, certainly as we don't know what the future will hold. So accepting the current reality seems to be a good idea, and then plan for what you hope for rather than what you know is happening right now. But the second point, and this is about the IGF, and it sort of touches on something Tanya mentioned at the beginning, was that, of course, the IGF had to extend to 3 weeks, and it was a very good idea to do so. But in doing so, international conferences, small and large, had already been scheduled for those days. Some of them specifically scheduled for those days, the days that became, they were scheduled around the original couple of weeks. So the reason for suggesting that we consider the fact that we may not meet this time next year for the IGF, certainly, is that it will allow people to use, anticipate that the IGF next year may be held over 2 to 3 weeks. And that would allow people to schedule their own conferences accordingly. Otherwise, people are going to do the same thing. They will be holding important events for them, either side of the global IGF. So it might be something for EuroDIG to take to the MAG in their consideration. It's otherwise, there are always events that are held around IGFs. So take those into account and consider the fact that we may be back to this format again next year. Of course, I hope not, but plan for the unfortunate rather than what we hope for. Thanks.
Absolutely agree, Adam. And for EuroDIG, we are planning already at least hybrid, and we are able to go back to a fully virtual meeting with planning with a hybrid meeting. But of course, I think everyone understands the need to meet in person, and if even a smaller group can meet, or we build hubs across Europe where physical meeting is possible as well, I think that would also help this community to go on. Nebojsa, you are next.
Hi, everybody. First, what Úvod mentioned in the chat about going hybrid, I think that is the logical future of remote hubs that IGF had previously, and which was a way to increase the participation from the participants who couldn't attend face-to-face meetings. And I certainly believe that is going to be the truth in the future. All the frustration that people already mentioned here and on some other gatherings about this webinar format, I completely agree with, starting from the not being able, compared to the regular Zoom meetings, to save the chat, to the fact that you didn't feel quite engaged into the meeting. Sometimes, believe me, I switched from Zoom platform to Facebook live stream, knowing, okay, that's what I have. I'm watching what people are talking and not having the chance to participate. In that sense, I think we have to give credit to all moderators and panelists, as this is the first IGF organized in this format. But definitely there will be some need for guidelines how to conduct and how to handle, I don't know, 30 panelists speaking and forcing them to talk 2 or 3 minutes. You lose dynamics, you lose concentration. Probably also panelists thinking, okay, it's 2 minutes, is it 2.5 minutes, when I'm going to be cut off. There are really needs for improvement. When we were discussing organization of this virtual IGF, I made a proposal to MAG based on virtual studios as EuroDIG organized. I think that I enjoyed EuroDIG extremely, and I think that was the very good technically and completely whole atmosphere around it was good. CIDIC followed on that. We had even one social event, and it was kind of fun to go with that. one final word about the pure quantity. I'm one of the rare who says that I enjoy IGF for having so many events that I can choose from. Last year we had 11 rooms in Berlin, and from 9 in the evening until 6 in the afternoon, 9 in the morning until 6 in the evening, I could always find a room to go to. And I think that's the beauty of IGF, to have a chance to choose during the whole day where to go and what to do. We are on this meeting for that purpose, to listen and to talk, to discuss the things about topics that we want, and with the people that we want to hear from. And I think that some kind of balance should be made when it comes to this hybrid meeting, especially having in mind different time zones, people coming from somebody in the morning, somebody in the evening. I really don't have idea how to handle that, but is it good to have a fixed schedule, one time zone, let's say working hours of certain. It's easier for EuroDIG. Okay, we adopt European, one of the European time zones, and we organize during those business hours. But for global event, it's very difficult to decide whether to spread it, through all different time zones, to have one day working hours of, I don't know, New York time zone, next day from Europe, next day from New Delhi, and so on, or to have it fixed, or to have it every day moved 2 hours in advance or backwards. It's very difficult. But I can say that I'm a little bit. I was expecting more attendance to some of the events, especially to some of the main sessions that had really very good topics. And I mean, for the main session to have 60 or 70 participants, I don't think in face-to-face meeting, each of those main sessions would definitely have more participants. We are learning. We are all trying to do something with this, and I think that we are getting better, and we are having better and better events. It was a pleasure to see you all on this screen here on the cameras, compared to this other formats that we had these days. Cheers.
Cheers, Nebojsa, and I absolutely echo to what you said. Just to give you an anecdote, friends of mine who know how much travel my work involved in the past are asking me, how could you go on with your work? I mean, you were traveling every month, and now you're completely at home. Could you still do your work? And I said, yes, we moved fully online. And when talking about outcomes of the IGF or of any internet governance forum, I think that's an outcome too, because I think our community is kind of a first or early adapter, because we can be a model case for other industries that are not as flexible as we have been in moving completely online, unless we know it's not perfect. But it is something that we could show that this community is able to move online, has the technical ability, has the personal ability to connect and to interact online. I think that is something we could be and should be proud of. Okay, Adam, is that an old hand or a new hand?
Oh, that is old, sorry.
Okay, then Titi is the next. Titi.
Okay, thanks, Sandra, for giving me the floor. Just I want to share what I think have been the most important things that made Italy IGF a success, because I think the important was that Italy IGF tried to combine the best of the online and in presence event. This is a first point, but at the same time, another element that contributed to have a successful Italy IGF was the strength that Union Camere and also the Chamber of Commerce in Italy were able to put, try to involve all the sites that were distributed on the national territory. So I think just reconnecting also to what Andrea said, that it's important also try to have a more distributed hub and more involvement at local site on the event, because if you try to involve also local community, you can attract more people and more participation. Okay, thanks.
And I really hope that will be the case in Trieste next year, to at least reach out to the local community. Okay, we still have, no, we don't have. I think our time is over already, but I'm not sure if there's a hard limit. Can the IGF technical people let me know if there's a hard limit to our session? Okay, they are not answering. Not really. Okay, they say not really. Then I have one more hand raised. I think, Andrea, that's a new hand.
Yes, it's a new hand. And wait, let me put the headphones. About what Titi just said about the local hub and the local participation. If you think in the history of the IGF, besides few exceptions, you always had these strange dynamics where you have little participation from the local. Think about even in last year in Berlin, despite all the advertisement and the money put from the Germans, the vast majority were participants from international participants. And I remember probably Hyderabad, the IGF in India, where you had a lot of local participation. But this is something that we never, we knew. I feel that we knew there was an issue, particularly when the IGF goes into some countries where, think about, think about even Poland this year or next year. And what's happening in Poland with abortion rights, or think about the host for when it's 2021, which is now in war, and 2022. Then we never really looked at the local community, and what the Italian IGF did, and that really work, is that they involved this network of Chamber of Commerce. They have offices in all the cities, and they themselves organized parallel side events, which indeed brought their own local community into the Italian IGF. This is something that, it came to me like, like a moment of elation. I said, wow, that's something that we knew it's an issue with the global IGF and EuroDIG as well. But we kind of took it, kind of hiding it under the carpet, and we said, well, if they don't come, it's their problem. It's not us. It's not our problem. So that's something that we need to, to think better for. In EuroDIG now next year, we know the Chamber of Commerce is a good ally, but the global IGF, I think, has a challenge there to address, and to rethink a bit, without having this feeling of of this touring circus that goes from country to country, but then at the end leaves little to no impact in the country where it just been.
I have to contradict Andrea regarding the local community. At least for EuroDIG, I can say that always more than half of the participants have been from the local community. And I'm just also checking last year's IGF, and I see that 53% were first-time attenders of the IGF. So that also speaks that this is possibly participants from Germany in this respect last year for the IGF. But for EuroDIG, I can say that for sure that more than half of the attendees were from the local community, and only the other half was kind of this circulating mafia, or how you call it. Okay, is there anyone else that would like to speak? If not, then let me ask my last question, in particular to those who were involved in the youth participation, which is, I see Nadia and Georgi and Elisabeth. Did I forget anyone? No, I don't think so. How we are going to start for the youth IGF? Are we going to assume we do it as a physical meeting and start as usual with a call for application, or are we starting to really think early about another format like webinars, online meetings, or whatsoever? Have you thought about this already, or is that too early to think about it? I'm just interested to hear your ideas.
I will jump right in if that's okay. We already had an exchange, and I think our understanding at this point is that we have to account for, I mean, as the whole EuroDIG have to account for the possibility that we might not be able to travel, but regardless would do a call for participation as we did in the last years, so that we have a reason to reach out to young people across Europe and have a disclaimer that this could go either way, that we might be able to get some of them to Trieste if we can be on site. And this is the offer that stands behind an active participation. Also, what has come out of this year's EuroDIG is that there were so many people who very actively participated through all the webinars and also in EuroDIG. And what we kind of promised them is, if it's possible, that they can then participate and be funded with their travels to the next EuroDIG. So we have to figure out a way to, you know, get people engaged the way that it kind of worked this year under the given circumstances, but also not give up too early on the possibility of maybe having some people on site. There is a very good participation from youth in Italy, has been this year and is also foreseen for the next year. So I think there's really an opportunity there for us to engage people on site and through other countries. But of course, this is something that we have to keep in mind while planning. As of now, my suggestion was and would be that we have this outreach moment of a call for participation.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anyone else? Georgi or Nadia?
I can add to that. Regarding the messages at the end of EuroDIG, the messages are usually presented, and we've started thinking about all the possibilities, both online, offline, and a hybrid format, but also importantly, how we're going to bring those messages and how we're going to integrate participants with the messages into the community. So these are things that we're already thinking about on what kind of impact the virtual or hybrid version is going to have on participation, but also networking of young people within the society, because it's really difficult on an online format to introduce someone to someone. So then kind of brainstorming already about how can we connect people, both with the messages, but also for them to really learn from the community and find the people that is going to help them, you know, move forward, or finding the topics that really interest them.
Thanks, Nadia. And Georgi, would you like to add something as well?
Yes, thank you, Sandra. I'll just briefly, let's say, share my thoughts. I think that in any shape or form, we'll have to, I think it would be good to, let's say, get ready for the online portion of it in any ways, meaning that no matter what happens, we'll have to get we'll have to prepare ourselves for the very significant portion which will be online, meaning that we don't know whether or not it will be on-site or not on-site, whether or not there'll be actual people physically present in Trieste, but we definitely know that some participants will be online. So that's unavoidable. That's one thing that I would like to, let's say in this particular regard. In another way, I pretty much agree with what Nadia and Elisabeth said. So.
Okay. I think we have a pretty good agreement and a strong agreement on this matter. Is there anything else that any one of you would like to raise? Okay, if this is not the case, then I would like to thank everyone for active participation and also to the IGF technical team for allowing us to extend the session to 10 minutes a little bit. Stay safe, stay healthy, and let's hope for better times to meet each other soon somewhere in person. Enjoy the rest of your day and have a good week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.